Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all so easily.
Hi, my name is Craig Thompson Wood. I'm your host on Teaching with Board Games. Here today to continue Monopoly May, looking at different ways that Monopoly is used in education. Today we're looking at Intergroup Monopoly. Now before I get into this variation on Monopoly, what I want to do is just introduce the game itself, talk a little bit about where it's coming from, because it's important to understand the roots of the game and the intention of the game design in order to really understand where this creator was coming from. Monopoly was created back was patented in 1904 by a woman by the name of Elizabeth Mcgee. Now, Elizabeth Mcgee originally had called it the landlord's game, and she was a very outspoken activist regarding feminism and economic reform. Her belief was that the governments should, instead of taxing income or other sources of money, should create a universal land tax based on the usefulness, the size, and the location of the land. Then after the funding, the government should, with any leftover money, be distributing the wealth back to the people. She felt that monopolies of businesses and property ownership just created and concentrated wealth unfairly. So her purpose was to create the landlord's game, and she patented it back in 1904, which I think I already said actually, but she created this game with the purpose of wanting to educate people about the dangers of this land ownership and monopolies. In her own words, she said that the landlord's game was a practical demonstration of the present system of land grabbing with all its usual outcomes and consequences. It might well have been called the game of life, as it contains all the elements of success and failure in the real world. Let young people see clearly the gross injustice of our present land system, and when they grow up, if they are allowed to develop naturally, the evil will soon be remedied. I mean, that was her intention, that was her hope, was to create it as an eye-opening experience playing the game. And this is perhaps why people get so upset when they play Monopoly, because it's all about just cutthroat and just trying to be the winner and take away from other people, and it's kind of right there at the core of it, right there, that this game was designed for the purpose of being ruthless. And so yeah, I guess that's why it has this negative feeling when people play it, because that's kind of the point of the game when Elizabeth Mcgee had created it. But now, part of the problem with that, when you look at it, if this is her purpose, is to say a game of life and understanding how this really works, it's just that it's not how it really works. There's lessons which she's trying to teach, but they're not actually hitting home. So then the problem with the game in educating in this way is, like I said, it's not taking into account certain things which are facts of life. And that is that not everybody is treated equally. In the landlord's game and Monopoly, they ignore the fact that there's any kind of discrimination, racism, classism, sexism, anything like that that is true in life. It treats all players in the game equally. All players have equal opportunities. All players get equal chances and monies and things like that. And this simply isn't the case in life. And this is where we know for a fact that some people in life, whether it's by their race, gender, or social status, will be treated differently and have more or less opportunities and more or less freedoms available to them based on those factors. So this is where Richard Harvey comes in. Richard Harvey he's from St. Louis University, and he's the one who had developed this intergroup monopoly system. So it's completely his creation that I'm sharing with you here. I'm not taking any credit for this one at all. Just want to share with you, as I say, different ways that people are using Monopoly to help understand and to teach. And in this way, what Richard Harvey is doing is he's helping people understand the realities of life, the realities of what Elizabeth Mcgee was trying to teach, but didn't quite hit home with. So he has developed this intergroup monopoly in which different players will have different levels of class and privilege, which is going to affect how they play on the board and what access they have to money, what access they have to freedoms. So let's take a look at how this works.
So when playing this version of Intergroup Monopoly, the players are going to have different roles assigned to them. You're going to have groups of 5. The first player is one player is going to be the banker. They're going to be responsible only for dealing with the money with other players, as well as recording the debt of players. Because in this version, players will not go bankrupt. When a player reaches 0 money, then what happens is any money that's owed to another player or to the bank is paid by the bank, but then the bank records their level of debt. So that way players can continue playing even after they would have normally been reduced to bankruptcy. The other 4 players play, but they play with different positions. So player 1, and we'll call player 1 the Skylon Tower here, they play with according to normal Monopoly rules. They can buy properties, they can roll the dice normally, when they pass go, they collect $200, etc., etc. Everything is completely normal for them. Player 2 has the restrictions of that they can only move half of the dice rolled. So whatever they roll, they would have that and can round up. That's their distance moved. Plus, they're not allowed to buy properties which are valued over $150. So anything from yellow to just this corner is all that they can afford and all that they're allowed to buy. Player 3 has the same rules as player 2, that they can only move half of the dice rolled and can only buy the properties up to $150, but they will also have a rule that if they roll higher than the number 7 on the dice, then they go to jail directly. So they have the same rules as Tool, but they're just going to be spending more time in jail, or I guess the snowstorm here, than the player 2 player. Player 4 will move normally, but they will receive $350 every time they pass go instead of $200, plus which, whenever they buy properties or hotels, they can buy it at a cost of 2 for 1, so they get it at half price. They have to pay a full price for 1, but when they buy 1, they get 1 free. Okay, so just looking at how that would go. So if the first player goes, they roll a 6, they can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is Meech Lake, so player 1 would probably purchase Meech Lake. Player 2 goes, player 2 rolls an 11. 11 would normally take them to Science World, but they have to have their dice rolled up, so they go to the territories here. The territories is $250, which is more than they're allowed to buy, so they're there and can do nothing. Player 3 is going to go. Player 3 rolls a 10, so they go straight to jail and can do nothing. Player 4 goes, and they roll 6. They also land at Meech Lake, which is owned by Skylon, so they have to pay them some rent. So game's going to continue, but as you can well imagine, that as the hockey stick, who is the player 4, as they're going around and around and are passing go, collecting $350, whereas the Skylon is only collecting $200, that inequality is going to start to make itself known. And as the game goes on to where properties are being built, then the player 4 is going to be getting a huge advantage because they're paying less for all their properties, which are going to generate even more income for them. Whereas poor player 2 and 3 are stuck moving halfway around. More than half of the board is unavailable to them for purchases, whereas everything is open to them for expenses. And player 3 has that extra problem of being sent to jail all the time. So there can be a lot of frustration in this game, a lot of demoralization of, I can't do anything about this, I'm just stuck. But that's kind of the point, and you want students to realize that, because this is what the point of this exercise is. Now, you play this for a while, get students to a certain point in the game, then you stop them, and you're going to then enter phase 2. This is what Elizabeth Mcgee had talked about with the landlord's game. She says if we create a system of equality, these evils of the monopolies is going to erase itself. So students will then continue to play, but now at this point, anything that has been unequal or unfair is going to be erased. Everybody's going to play by normal Monopoly rules. They keep all the money they have, they keep all the property they have, they keep everything the way it is, but they're going to just play regular now. But what's going to happen then is already the people have the one advantage, and then they're still going to be struggling to catch up, even with because of the way that it has been set up in the beginning. So once this is all done, then you go into a post-game debriefing, and then where the students are asked to express what their experience felt like. What did it feel like to be player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4? Ask them to identify effects of inequality. Consider the various links amongst institutions and upward mobility. So your income, your wealth, your housing, your education. Even though education is not part of the game, Richard Harvey says that he asked the students to consider that as part of what is here and its connection to how it would be affecting what's in the game. And then for a final question, he asks the students to consider, how long do you think you would need to play in order to balance everything out so that things became truly equal in the Phase 2 program? So that can lead to some very interesting discussions, some different responses, and that's where he uses it for evaluations and things, but that is how he uses it to teach about inequalities in our current system of economy. And that is Intergroup Monopoly. Hopefully you found this interesting, educational. I know I did when I was looking into this, and that's why I said when I had originally thought to do Monopoly back in April, and I was looking at, well, how do people use it for education, and I saw all these different ways that people are doing it. I thought, I really need to do this some justice and do separate episodes for some of these things, amazing ways that people are using it. So please tune in next week for when I'm doing another version of Monopoly, how it's being used for education. And if you have any ideas for ways Monopoly is being used, if you have creative ways that you're using it in your classroom, your home, or university, wherever that you are, please leave me that message in the comment section below. Would love to hear from you. Would love to know your ideas, your thoughts. And if you have any other ideas for things you might like to see on the channel, leave that message in the comment section below. I love to hear from the viewers, as it helps to give me ideas which give relevant content for you. That's going to wrap it up for today. Until next time, I'm Craig Thompson, your host on Teaching with Board Games, saying thanks for coming to the classroom.
Are you coming back to school with